A very good morning to one and all present over here. Before we begin, I request all the audience to put their phone on switch off or silent mode. Compassion is a muscle that grows stronger with use. This is what was said by the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi. He, the champion of compassion, had given us the key to achieving a harmonious society where mutual respect and love would have been the driving force. It is of the highest importance that we, as the humankind, reflect upon his thoughts to re-establish what he visioned for the nation as a whole. The Center for Humanities and Compassion Studies, Xavier University, Bhubaneswar, is proud to host a 2-day national conference on remembering Mahatma Gandhi, compassion and relevance in our times. We have the best of the brains from diverse fields who will help us in the journey of understanding and analyzing the ideologies of the father of our nation. I now request the guest of the honor, His Excellency Major General Chris J. Ease, High Commissioner, Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Ashok Kumar Das, Vice Chairman, Odisha State Higher Education Council and former Vice Chancellor, Utkal University, Odisha, Shri S.N. Sahu, former Officer on Special Duty and Press Secretary to late President of India, Shri K.R. Narayan, Dr. Father Paul Fernandez, Vice Chancellor of Xavier University and Director of XIMB, Professor Father E.A. Augustine, Registrar Xavier University, Bhubaneswar, to come and occupy their seat on the stage. Please. I now request the student volunteers to present them with a bouquet. Guests, members of press and media, faculty, staff, and students. On behalf of Xavier University, I, Vishal Patnaik, extend a very warm and cordial welcome to all of you. Today, we are indeed delighted to have amongst us eminent persons from various fields to be a part of this important theme in the current scenario. To begin with, may I request our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Father Paul Fernandez, to welcome the dignitaries on the dais and deliver the inaugural speech.
A very good morning to each one of you. And we are delighted that we could have this conference on Mahatma Gandhi, compassion and relevance for our times. But the important word is not only compassion, but remembering Mahatma Gandhi. Today is Martyrs' Day, celebrated as a day of peace and harmony and a day of prayer for the same. We enter into this thought through a spirit of reflection and deep conversation on our beloved Mahatma Gandhi, whose memory and sacrifice we fondly recall. A cordial and grateful welcome to our distinguished guests of honor today, and to all the delegates and guests who are gracing this conference. A cordial welcome to Your Excellency, Major General Chris, the High Commissioner of Republic of Nigeria to India, from Xavier University, from all the faculty, staff, and students. We are indeed blessed by your presence with us today. Mahatma Gandhi had deep affinity with Africa and its people, and we are very happy that you could grace us on this occasion. There were leaders throughout the world who were very much influenced by his simplicity and ideals. He inspired humanity to rise to its highest potential, the compassion and the love that we have for one another. Sir, on this occasion, it's an honor to have you with us today. A warm welcome from all of us. A cordial and warm welcome to you with thanks. Appreciate it very much. We have with us keynote speakers who come from different universities and institutions in India, also from the corporate world, from NABARD, also from NALCO, and from others, and educational institutions. We have the press members, and a cordial welcome to each one of you. And we'll be eagerly waiting to listen to you, to your message on this day. Now, I know there are Ghanaian scholars, and some could not come. They wanted to come be with us today. I will not name them, but in the brochure that you have, their names are there for medical emergencies and so on. They could not be here with us, but they are sent their good wishes to us. And they will be here with us in the next one. Okay, that's what they have promised, and I'm glad they join in the effort. There are many others who helped us put this conference together. Without naming them, we have their names in our hearts, our deep felt welcome and gratitude to you. In various ways, many people helped to put this conference together. Now, I'm sure you will address the question some people asked me when we ventured along this line: why do you want to remember Mahatma Gandhi today? And this question is not easy, because when others are trying to making attempts to forget him and even replace his space in our hearts with other spaces. So it's a very tough question. I'm sure each one has his own or her own particular answer, and good to listen to that and ask this question till we have in our hearts a clear yes. Yes, he is the father of the nation. He is the only one who is the father of the nation. He gave birth to a nation in freedom and led all of us into that freedom. So we remember him, we share his thoughts, his vision, but do we know the vision, the view he had, the inspiration, the influence he had on people around the world, so that we are enlightened by and also a little bit influenced by what his views are, his inspiration is for our times. We can also ask, is there really a difference between his time and our times? Do we sense the spirit of time? Is there something more deeper, more fundamental, more inspiring, more nourishing our spiritual quest and nourishing the thoughts of our soul regarding the humanity? Can we share, as he shared humanity, his humanity with us, can we share it? He shared his compassion, can we share it? His courage, his work towards the freedom and liberation of the people. Can we, together with him, share that space? So I have with me all the faculty and students. Therefore, it's the whole university must reflect on what it means to remember Mahatma Gandhi. And also in our courses and curriculum, in the future, this Center for Humanities and Compassion Studies, which we are going to create with this act today. We have been planning this for more than 2 years, okay, in the quiet, and today, in a way, it's in the open. And we would like that this Compassion Center for Humanity and Compassion Studies be a center of research and support for the ideals that Mahatma Gandhi stood, the father of the nation. Now, I'm sure there are thoughts in our hearts that, want to make India great. This dream was planted in our hearts by Mahatma Gandhi himself, who wanted India to be a great freedom-loving nation. I hope one day we shall come closer to that vision. In our own humble way, we want to begin reflecting on humanity, values that humanity embodies to make it wholesome, healing, and living in peace and harmony. We want to share a common sense of truth, and towards that, we have created this center. For Mahatma Gandhi, truth was God. Our God was truth. And nonviolence was a way of reaching the truth, touching it at the heart. And he gives us his discovery, his experiments with truth, and shares it with us. Can we rediscover the new humanity that we hope to proclaim for the future in our times? I know we have with us brilliant people who will share their thoughts, and we'll have great conversations, good conversations on this. I wish the very best for today and tomorrow, and maybe the days to come. We need the cooperation of each and every one to move the center forward, and I wish the very best. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Father, for your words of welcome and setting the tone for the conference. I invite the dignitaries on the dais, His Excellency Major General Chris J.E.'s, Dr. Ashok Kumar Das, Sri S.N. Sahu, Father Paul Fernandez, and Father E.A. Augustine to come forward for lighting the lamp. May I request the audience to rise for the prayer song.
तबला।
हमें आजादी बिना खड़ग बिना ढाल, साबरमती के संत तूने कर दिया कमाल। आंधी में भी जलती रहे गांधी तेरी मशाल, साबरमती के संत तूने कर दिया कमाल। दे दी हमें आजादी बिना खड़ग बिना ढाल, साबरमती के संत तूने कर दिया कमाल। आंधी में भी जलती रहे गांधी तेरी मशाल, साबरमती के संत तूने कर दिया कमाल।
जब काली घटा छाए ओरे ओरे ओ अंधेरा सच को निगल जाए, जब दुनिया सारी डर के आगे सर अपना झुकाए, जब दुनिया सारी डर के आगे सर अपना झुकाए। तू शोला बन जा, वो शोला बन जा जो खुद जल के जहां रोशन कर दे। एकला चलो रे जो खुद जल के जहां रोशन कर दे। एकला चलो रे যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে, তবে একলা চলো রে, তবে একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো রে, তবে একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো, একলা চলো রে। যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে, তবে একলা চলো রে। एलम पकड़े लाठी पकड़े चलते थे वो शान से, जालिम कांपे थर 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 सुनकर उनका नाम रे। वंदे में था दम, वंदे मातरम, वंदे में था दम, वंदे मातरम। कद था उनका छोटा सा और सरपट उनकी चाल रे, दुबले से पतले से थे वो चलते सीना तान के। वंदे में था दम, वंदे मातरम, वंदे में था दम, वंदे मातरम, वंदे मातरम। साबरमती के संत तूने कर दिया कमाल।
Thank you, choir, for the special and appropriate invocation. Major General Chris J. Ease is a product of Nigerian Army School of Finance and Administration, NASFA. His military career extends to Nigerian Defense Academy, Kaduna, Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, Command and Staff College, Jhansi, National War College, Ajuja, and as the former Director of Policy and Chief of Policy of Army Headquarters, and as a Major General. Currently, he is serving as the High Commissioner of Republic of Nigeria at New Delhi. I cordially invite His Excellency, Major General Chris J. is to deliver his address on the Gandhian thought. Please, sir.
Could we all rise for a minute of silence, please? Can we all rise? Please be seated.
Manas. Let's go. Let's go. Give it. Give it. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Paul Fernandez, SJ, the other distinguished members of the high table, I didn't get a copy of the protocol list, so thank you. So I don't know who to address and who might be there and who might not be there. That's okay. All right. All right. Shri Ashok Chandra Panda, Honorable Minister of Tourism and Culture Development, Government of Odisha. Dr. Ashok Das, Vice Chairman, OSHC. That's the acronym. I'm not very familiar with it.
Higher Education
Okay,
Council.
Higher Education Council.
And SN Sahu.
Okay.
SN Sahu.
And SN Sabu. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, faculty and staff of XAVIER University, and other participants in this great occasion. Let me start by saying that the fact that I'm standing here is proof of the victory of Gandhi's philosophy. Because history has it that Gandhi started from South Africa, and South Africa was an apartheid state by the time Gandhi started. Even Indians were relegated to the second class, and then the whites were on top, Indians in the middle, and Africans below. So the fact that I'm invited to come and be guest of honor to such an occasion is the first tribute that I personally pay to the philosophy of Gandhi. About myself, just as I find it a little bit difficult to pronounce some Indian names, I don't blame Indians when they find it difficult to pronounce my name. My name is Chris Eze, E-Z-E. It's a very simple name to pronounce. I actually read finance as a young officer when I came back from Sandhurst. But when I finished reading finance, for one reason or the other, I decided not to make a career of the finance and went to the Armored Corps. So that is where I served until I retired as a Major General. Now, I want to express my sincere gratitude, very deep gratitude for the honor done to me to address you today. I have chosen as the title of my address, The Significance of Gandhi's Philosophy for the World in general and for Africa in particular. I'm doing that because I'm speaking from an African perspective. But let me start by recounting my impressions of the Jesuits, who established this institution. I'm a Catholic myself. So, and I know that historically, during the religious wars in Europe, after Luther's Reformation, the Jesuits were the ones that were at the forefront of the Counter-Reformation. That is why that contributed a lot to why Catholicism as a branch of Christianity survived, and that is why I'm a Catholic myself. If it hadn't happened, then maybe I could have been a Methodist if I was a Christian at all. Or if an Indian had come, I could have been a Hindu. So I thank them for that. I acknowledge the high-quality education which combines with moral guidance and a positive work ethic that they are famous for throughout the world. They are self-sacrifice for the common good, and they are being ready to operate in a multicultural and multi-religious environment, which requires a broad mind. Now, who was Gandhi, and how do Africans view him? You are Indians, you know him very much, very intimately, and you can contextualize him in your culture. But Africans who are not Hindus and who are not Indians, let me give you a glimpse of what we think about him. It may not be holistic, but at least that is what we view him from a distance, and all of them are very positive. We view him as the originator of the application of the philosophy of positive pacifism, otherwise known as non-violence to political struggles. We know that many highly respected spiritual leaders have come and gone, and many of them have preached peace, but Gandhi we perceive him as the one who applied the preachment of peace to political struggle. We view him as the spiritual mentor of Black and African liberation fighters like Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and others who led the struggle for independence through nonviolent means. We view Gandhi as the foremost Indian patriot and the father of the Indian nation, and he has been so referred to earlier today in this hall. We view him as a saint. He may not have been canonized by the Catholic Church, and officially pronounced as a saint, but we view him as a saint nonetheless. Therefore, when about an African like me talks about the significance of Gandhi's philosophy in today's troubled world, he does so from that African, Afrocentric viewpoint. And it's from that viewpoint that you have to understand what I'm trying to say, or view what I'm trying to say. Now, so why and how do we think that that philosophy can fit into today's world? First of all, we live in a very dangerous world that is armed with nuclear weapons, which could be launched either deliberately or accidentally, as the false alarms of nuclear attacks that were recently witnessed in Hawaii and Japan could easily have triggered, especially against the background of the tragicomic exchanges between the leaders of nuclear-armed North Korea and the United States. Anything could have gone wrong. Another reason is the erstwhile balance of terror, in which the fear of mutually assured destruction, which was appropriately called the Mark Doctrine, had held the two superpowers, that is the United States and the Soviet Union, in check, has now given way to multipolarity and nuclear proliferation. North Korea has launched its own. Iran is being suspected of developing nuclear weapons. It will go on and on. Now, consumerism and the struggle for limited natural resources, including water, have exponentially increased global flashpoints. Right now, Egypt and Ethiopia are squabbling over a dam that Ethiopia is building on the Nile. Those who know geography know that the Nile started from Ethiopia. One part of the Nile started from Ethiopia, the other part started from Uganda. And then Ethiopia is building a dam now to generate electricity and do irrigation, and Egypt is complaining about it because they say that it will reduce the level of water in the Nile. And that is a big problem. I'm sure I hear about squabbles about the Brahmaputra and the other rivers. So it is not restricted to Cape Town. Cape Town, it said, will run out of water. A lot of Indians live in Cape Town, so you can call your brothers, and it's a big problem. And that thing is that the defeat of communism and socialism and the unbridled supremacy of capitalism and global economic models, in which the industrialized world competes in a so-called free market with developing nations whose population growth drops that of the developed. Now, those functions and those frustrations are now fueling the restiveness of the youth, which is compounded by having taken on the religious character that the United Nations identifies as being common to more than 100 terrorist organizations, which is listed in its terror index. In fact, as at the last count, there were about 117 terror organizations officially listed by the United Nations in their terror index. Most frightening is that the recent rise of fundamentalist nationalism in the advanced countries is seriously beginning to undermine the capacity of international institutions, particularly the United Nations, to successfully arbitrate in global disputes and maintain world peace. The recent vote on the status of Jerusalem at the United Nations General Assembly and its brushing aside by the United States eloquently attests to this danger for the future. If you demystify the international organization, you don't have any arbitrator or final resort. Then it becomes a Hobson's state of nature. In all this, Africa is most at risk because of its underdevelopment, low infrastructure, low level of literacy, and weak institutions, which make it extremely vulnerable to externally induced crises. Boko Haram, which was inspired by Akim. Akim is Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb. Al-Qaeda divided itself into franchises. So it is not only what you are seeing in Pakistan that is Al-Qaeda. So the Maghreb is the Sahel region of Africa, and North Africa. So they have Akim, Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, while Al-Shabaab, which grew out of ACAP. ACAP is Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Have wreaked havoc in Nigeria and Somalia respectively, even though they were inspired from outside. and benefited from the illicit arms and ammunition that flooded Africa after the West overthrew Gaddafi in Libya without putting in place an effective successor, and thus left a vacuum that made it possible for religious fundamentalists to loot that country's arsenals and distribute them to their franchises throughout the continent. Most of the weapons being used in Africa today, and possibly in Pakistan, come from Libya. Because Gaddafi had huge arsenals, and then when he left and there was no central government, you know, missiles, tanks, armored personnel carriers, and so on and so forth, were just looted from the armories and distributed. A similar dynamic is playing out with herdsmen in Nigeria right now. Global warming is leading to desertification, which is driving herdsmen and their cattle from the Sahel into the Middle Belt and the southern states, and resulting in clashes between those herdsmen and local farmers. We still practice a very rudimentary type of animal husbandry, you know, where nomads go around with their cattle. The government is making huge efforts to see if they can begin to encourage ranches, but it's capital intensive and it also needs knowledge that cannot grow overnight. So if you Google it, you will see clashes in Nigeria, and that is driven by what I just said. Those clashes are unfortunately turned into political rather than security or development issues by the elite because of their struggle for power. That's the narrative being given to it now. To compound matters, government agencies are now telling us that many of those suspected supposed herdsmen are actually foreign terrorists. So we have a big problem. So both the world in general and Africa in particular need the positive pacifism of Gandhi today for their shared survival. But the question is it possible? Is that possible? Nobody can answer that question definitively for many reasons. The reasons include the fact that the challenges confronting today's leaders, be they cultural or political, are shaped more by economic than by moral considerations. In personal saintliness, the types of late Mother Teresa and Bishop Michael Leneja of my own Catholic Diocese of Nsukka in Enugu State of Nigeria will continue to pop up once in a while, but it will be very difficult to get political leaders like Lincoln or Mandela again, because politics now is largely driven by how much material prosperity the leaders can deliver to their impatient voters, not minding whose ox is God in the process. The United States' rejection of the Paris Accord, in full cognizance of the dangers of global warming, illustrates this perfectly. Furthermore, Huntington's class of civilizations is catching up with nations both internally and externally with a vengeance due to the struggle for power and influence. If you read Huntington, he mentions what he calls fault-line states, including Pakistan, Nigeria, Philippines, and all that, you know? But now the fault-line states are internalizing themselves in states that hitherto were considered to be monocultural states. And I'm sure that you can reflect on your own. It's not for me to tell you if it applies to India or not. Whereas Gandhi guided India's independence struggle but never governed it, and Mandela did govern South Africa but largely left the management of its economy to others, they could die and retire respectively with their moral authority and reputations intact. In contrast, their successors have had to face head-on the daunting challenges of the allocation of national values and resources, which is the primary function of politics. In that exercise, there must always be winners and losers. So getting those winners and losers to reach a consensus on how they view any one political leader is next to impossible, or at least during his lifetime. Churchill famously referred to Gandhi that we revere today as that half-naked fakir, because Gandhi was trying to dismantle the British Empire. Margaret Thatcher went to South Africa and called Mandela a terrorist, the same person that everybody is venerating as the, as the epitome of peace, and so it depends on whose ox is God in the process, That leader may be deified after his death, but most people who have aspired to political leadership in today's world want to be appreciated while alive, and rightly so, because if they can't win elections, they cannot impact their societies. Contrasting South Africa with Zimbabwe, for instance, whereas Mandela has gone into legend, no succeeding leader of South Africa can have political peace until he solves the issue of land and income redistribution, which Mandela refused to address, and rightly so, because national political cohesion was more important than economics during his time. But that was then. Now problems have changed. Now priorities have changed for the vast majority of South Africans, especially the black ones. Ironically, many people believe that that land and income redistribution would deal a big blow to that nation's agriculture and economy. So South African leaders now face a Hobson's choice. They don't know which, between the devil and the deep blue sea in macroeconomic policy. Now, President Mugabe, or in social policy, socio-economic policy, please. President Mugabe might have been vilified by the West for staying too long in power and for his management of Zimbabwe's economy, but none of his successors can hand back the land redistributed to black Zimbabweans wholesale to white farmers and remain in power. It's not possible. Nobody can try it. Added to this volatile mix in Africa is the indoctrination of young Muslims who form a significant part of the population into the belief that their economic woes are the result not of their lack of technical education or low productive capacity, but solely the moral decadence of the Western world, which is corrupting African societies and leading to inequalities in income distribution. I don't know whether this is the same narrative that drives fundamentalism in this part of the world, but that is what is happening in Africa. That belief, in turn, erodes the faith of those young men and women in their national institutions and drives them to take up arms to overthrow the existing order and return to a mythical caliphate of milk and honey, failing which, if they become casualties in the protest, they can become martyrs and then live in eternal bliss. So, it's a problem. It is indeed a very dangerous ideology which can only be combated with education. But where the desirability of education itself is predicated on its potential to secure a good job and a decent standard of living, according to the same Western standards of consumerism that those youths see on social media in depressed and undeveloped economies, we run into a vicious circle. It is not much better with Christian youths in Africa who crave the same lifestyles, but whereas they generally don't join jihadist groups, they take to crime, drugs, and follow fake evangelicals with their fake promises of instant wealth without labor, as long as they pay the tithes that will help the latter to maintain their flamboyant lifestyles. That's what is happening if you go to social media. What all this means is that whereas we will continue to have universal exemplars of moral rectitude like Pope Francis and the Dalai Lama, we cannot rationally expect them in wider political spheres. So each country has to struggle to breed its own territorially limited versions of such exemplars. The world then has no alternative than to return to multilateral organizations with their universalist principles that are supposed to regulate human conduct if humanity itself is to survive. In this context, it is very gratifying to note that the globally important United States is toning down its isolationist rhetoric, at least, judging by what Trump said in Davos. The United States legislature is agreeing in principle to tackle immigration reform with cool heads rather than with hysterical partisanship. ISIS is being defeated, at least on the ground. The reforms currently going on in Saudi Arabia and the recent demonstrations in Iran, which all combine to give a glimpse of an incipient retreat from nationalistic and religious fundamentalism. We hope that dynamic continues. In our volatile world, fundamentalism in our volatile world, what remains to be done, particularly in Africa, are basically three things. This is the last of my submissions. Firstly, the developed world, including India, because India is relatively developed compared to Africa. The developed world must, in their own self-interest, continue to contribute to the education of African youths. You see what Arab migration is doing to the culture, to the cultural perceptions of the survivors of the Nazi era in Germany today. You know, models like Gandhi, Mandela, and similar figures in Islamic history must be promoted in their educational curricula as guides to ethical conduct. They don't have models now. You know, their model is lucre, their model is materialism. Secondly, African leaders must be encouraged rather than vilified as they tackle the enormous challenges they face in governance. The routine demonization of those leaders, particularly by the Western media, must be seen as the disservice to global peace that it really is. That encouragement must be supplemented with concrete assistance to grow national institutions. Never again should any one leader be allowed to make the alleged demeaning statement against whole races that was recently and universally condemned. That condemnation gives one hope that the world has now passed a moral threshold in its perception and value of human dignity. African leaders, on their part, must learn to place the interests of their countries before their own personal interests. Thirdly, concerted efforts must be made to encourage African countries to grow their economies and provide jobs for their idle rulers. The most important ways to do that are to reduce the complicity of individuals and institutions in the developed world that aid corruption in Africa, and to channel direct foreign investment to legitimate areas that exploit the continent's huge natural resources for mutual benefit. It is gratifying to note here the serious efforts being made to integrate African economies, prevent and manage conflicts, grow democracy, and ease of doing business in virtually all African countries. Let me end by once again paying my personal tribute to the great Mahatma Gandhi, in whose honor we are gathered here. In one of his famous plays, the immortal Shakespeare puts this question into the mouth of an anonymous Roman politician after the assassination of Caesar. Quote, "Whence cometh such another?" Just as the original Julius never came back to life, in spite of the many Caesars that came after him, the world will never see another Mahatma Gandhi, but his legacy lives on. So, to paraphrase the American novelist Fenimore Cooper, Gandhi was indeed the last of the Mohicans. May his great soul continue to rest in perfect peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for those inspiring and insightful words. Mr. Ashok Kumar Das, an acclaimed scientist, has done his PhD and specialization in nuclear science. He has worked at Bhabha Atomic Research Center as head of its laser and plasma technology division. Dr. Das has presented around 1,430 papers at various conferences, workshops, symposiums at national and international level. A former Vice Chancellor of Utkal University, Bhubaneswar, Dr. Das is extremely passionate about bringing in educational reforms in the field of higher education in the state of Odisha. He is now serving as the chairman of Governing Council of CT Bhubaneswar and is also a member of NALCO Research and Scientific Advisory Council. I now request Dr. Ashok Kumar Das to share his views and insights on the importance of Gandhian thought. Please, sir.
His Excellency, Major General Chris J. Professor Dr. Paul Fernandez ji, Sri Sahu, and Dr. Augustine. All the participants, distinguished invitees, students. I feel tremendously privileged that I have been asked to come here and participate in this national conference on remembering Mahatma Gandhi. personally, I have been an admirer of Mahatma Gandhi for a number of reasons, but the primary one of them since my childhood was he was a man who practiced what he preached. I would say that this was the essence of this gentleman who pervaded 75 years on this earth and made transformations that probably nobody else can make. Now, Father Paul raised the issue, why are we remembering him? We maintain 1 minute silence on January 30th. We sing Ramdhoon on October 2nd. We of course quote him very often. So why now? And what has become the relevance after 7 decades have passed after he passed away? I would only start with if you remember Mahatma Gandhi, I read somewhere that he has spoken about more than 50,000 pages during his lifetime on every subject on earth. He has spoken, of course, on untouchability, sustainability. He has spoken about administration. He has spoken about the lot of the poor, professional value systems, and of course, on education. One of the things that he has told, a corollary can be brought to it for all of us to carry, because we have gathered together on 30th January. Somewhere he has said or noted, people are not very clear. I searched about his poorest of the poor, remembering the face of the poorest of the poor, that is often attributed to him. He has said, the thing that we take from this is, if you are a teacher, look at into the eyes of the student who is sitting at the utmost end of the class and see whether you are becoming articulate enough for him to understand. If you are a lawyer, look at the poorest client. If you are a doctor, look at the fellow who cannot pay but is dying and needs your attention. If you are a professional, then look. If you are a politician, of course, you look at the poorest fellow for whom you can do something, your policy can do something. I think this is what most of us would take home. I would talk about something that Mahatma Gandhi spoke maybe about 80 years back, something about 8 decades back. 8 decades back, in I think Wardha conference, this thin, frail old man in loincloth, as he is told, spoke about a holistic system of education. And as we look at everything that Mahatma Gandhi wrote and spoke about, at some point of time, in the post-independence days, we were in a hurry to become an industrial nation in a competitive manner. We were in great hurry. So we wanted to raise industries. We wanted to have engineers like yesterday. We wanted to have professionals. We wanted to have scientists and send people to the moon immediately. We wanted to have nuclear reactors. We wanted to have built a defense. And so the prescription, which he called Noitalim, for first the basic education, that is primary, and then, of course, the higher education, was ignored as not being very practical. That was a pity, because 80 years after he spoke about Noitalim, what have we got after this fast growth of our education sector has happened? what we are looking as outcomes from an education stream? We look as outcome from the education stream that it would make good citizens who would obey the constitution, obey the law, and participate in the growth of a nation, build a nation. I do not think that is happening. I need not elaborate. The second, we need a system of education where the proficiency are what it professes to be. They need to be world class. They need to create free thinkers and create knowledge. They need to create knowledge. They need to create innovation and contribute to the world. If you see the proficiency level, see the statistics, even the best of the institutions, there is a 2 to 3 year lag. And the third is job of an educational institution is to institute a value system. If you look at the universities of the country today, the campuses, the times when student union elections happen, the times when political rallies happen, and the students roam about in the street with lathis, you would know that we have not been able to institute a value system. Now, if you ask me, is Gandhi's prescription on education relevant today? I think you can answer yourself whether it is relevant or not. So what did Noitalim say and why we rejected it? I think we would look at it a little briefly on this. Noitalim, the spirit of Noitalim was you combine intellectual part of the education with labor. Mahatma Gandhi said, and he gave example of charkha work in the schools. He talked about agricultural work for people going a little post-basic education, and he talked about such things to happen. And he said, why did he say this? He said that only by doing work along with acquiring knowledge, you would develop a respect for labor and you would understand dignity of labor. You would see in many countries where gap years are given for people to go into agricultural field, people to go into armed forces and spend a year or two working and sweating together, the things, their value system becomes different. So we ask ourselves a question today at the crossroad that university system has found itself to be in. How to synergize equity, access, excellence in higher education for creation of a sustainable livelihood, because we are not able to create sustainable livelihood as yet. How to balance career preparation aspects of education with the knowledge acquisition, creation and dissemination that is part of education. We are not able to do. We have made education a black box where we put an input and we expect a person come out with a job and get into a job. If sufficient people that are coming out not job enabled, then we say the system has failed. So we have made it as a black box where people get in, people go out. They may as well be robots, they may not be human beings. So what we have done is dehumanized education. I am in fact extremely happy that the center is being called compassion studies, because at least compassion would bring humanization of the robot that we are producing. The education system is making job seekers instead of job creators. Knowledge seekers and creators. The only thing that we are able to produce are job seekers. So the spirit of Mahatma's thoughts were based, of course, on character development, of course, inclusive of science, technology, liberal arts, language, experiential learning, vocational training, connecting to local culture and local language, and then learning the values of labor and sustainability. The model, the colonial model or the Western model of education, which the Western countries have got out of. They have left it, he called it pedagogy of manual work. Education must be supplemented by practical or experiential learning related to life to realize the abstractions and bookish teachings more meaningfully. The basis of true education is character building, inculcation of values must be done side by side through life's experiences. Education should be economically self-supporting as far as possible through student entrepreneurship. This is where Naitalim got the worst brickbats, and this is what we are trying to tell people: do an incubation, do an entrepreneurship training, and be job creators. See how the circle comes round. Education should be based on non-violence and community, work for community. The medium of instruction in basic education should be mother tongue, only because there should be a connection to the culture and language, and man cannot exist as an island without his culture and language. Primary education, of course, should be free and compulsory, and it should involve elemental principles of sanitation, hygiene, and nutrition. Remember Swachha Bharat after 80 years. All educational planning should be undertaken with rural Indian masses in mind. In other words, education should not be elitist, but popular in character. Combine all of this is how our education policy reads today: equity, social justice, human character, human dignity, economic well-being, cultural self-respect as the core values. This is what the policy says. In 80 years, we have not found a practical way to implement these policies. I'll quote Mahatma Gandhi for one quotation which I have liked very much. The fountainhead of all conflicts in the world is that knowledge has been separated from work. They have been separated in thoughts by a faulty psychology, faulty sociology, assigned different market values by faulty economics, and rank inability of our system to embed value system through work culture. Work and knowledge must never be separated. Separation of learning from labor results in social injustices and inequity, leading to frustration and loss of excellence. Social inequity, we know, can never make a nation great. If the bottom doesn't rise, you can lift the top to heaven, but the bottom still will remain. And so the first job is to look and raise the bottom, and that can only happen if you understand the relevance of what this thin, frail old man told 80, 90 years back. How far and which ideas of Naitalim we should take? I am not prescribing in the same manner that take the rigid Gandhian say, take it as a whole or reject the whole. You must ask how far and which ideas of Naitalim and its practices are compatible with the goals and targets of sustainable development of India in education today. Plenty of them which can be practically implemented in terms of experiential learning. How far the mainstream education system is flexible to incorporate the elements of Naitalim? Today it is flexible. Because West has gone in this direction, we can easily go. Nobody can blame. How can mainstream education be molded for Naitalim towards sustainable development? These are the three questions I think your Center for Gandhian Studies should ask itself. I believe that this is possible on a gradual introduction of pedagogy of experiential work, introduction of gap years, field works, fellowships, value education through living laboratories, and involvement of role models into higher education system. It will be a misnomer if we say this cannot be done. We must transform the job seekers that we are producing into job creators and knowledge creators. I am sure this definitely can be worked out. Lot of things when we talk about Mahatma Gandhi in particular, all of this must be implemented in terms of the guiding principle of the last man in the queue. In education, how did this topic came about to me, and how did I dare to come here and speak to all of you about this? When I was Vice Chancellor of Utkal University, you know, our general university system is a very turbulent system. And I would see my children on the streets, and television would show this the whole day repeatedly. I would think, how do we keep them engaged? How do we introduce a value system? I talk to people, everybody says, sir, no problem, value system, we will take classes on value system, we will take classes on ethics, we will tell preachings of Swami Vivekananda, Mahatma Gandhi on non-violence, and I am sure students will listen. If I know youth, because I have 2 children, that if I preach them anything, they will listen here and take it out and throw the other side. It is an old man's ramblings. Therefore, I accidentally came across an article. The illiterate brother says, let me take a bucket and run, and I will pour water on the fire. The educated brother says, no, you should not go under any circumstances. You may be caught for arson, you may be doing something that is illegal, it may not be acceptable by law, somebody will tell you have lit the fire, police will catch you, why should you risk yourself? You may die. He gives 10 agreement, and then when the illiterate brother tells, people will die, how can you stand here? The educated brother says, I'll write an extremely beautiful condolence message and post it in the social media. This is what we have become. This, I am not saying all of us. A lot of you, I look at your young faces and I get energized. I am sure all of you are good. I am lamenting the failure of my generation who have not been able to instill a value system so that you people are forced to seek a job, not create a job. Duplicate knowledge instead of creating knowledge. And if I talk to young people just about Gandhi, without shaking you a bit about the realities today, I have had students telling me, sir, Gandhi is very boring. Gandhi is not boring. An old man who thought to write 50,000 pages and all of them relevant today. I congratulate XAVIER University, Father Paul. I am nobody, I am no speaker, I am no Gandhian thought reader or researcher. I am just an educationist and a teacher, and I have followed Gandhiji all my life by only one act, that I look at the eye of the last boy in my class, and if his eyes are blank, I go and stand near him and tell him, Baba, कुछ नहीं समझ रहे हो, तो तुम बोलो जितना समझो उससे मैं समझ जाऊंगा कि where I have gone wrong, and I'll try to remodel the way I teach. I believe if all of you can do this, you would have paid a tribute to this great man whom we have kept alive only in the folklore, not in our lives. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Indeed, the essence of this great personality was he practiced what he preached. Thank you, sir, for the wonderful insight on the topic. Shri S.N. Sahu has served the nation as an officer on special duty and as the press secretary of one of the late presidents of India, K.R. Narayanan. He has also served as the director of Prime Minister's Office during 2004 and 2009. He presently teaches the students of National Law University at Delhi as a guest faculty. I request Shri S.N. Sahu to throw some light on the theme of the conference. Please, sir.
Honorable Vice Chancellor of this prestigious university, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Nigeria, Professor Das, the Registrar, it's a very, very appropriate theme chosen for today's solemn day, solemn event marking martyrdom of Mahatma Gandhi. Apart from this, 2017 and 18 marks the centenary of Champaran Satyagraha. Across the country, events have been organized to throw deeper light into the contemporary significance of Champaran Satyagraha. And more than that, 2017 and 18 also marks the centenary of Sabarmati Ashram. So therefore, on the occasion of the centenary of Champaran Satyagraha, centenary of Sabarmati Ashram, and the solemn martyrdom day of Gandhiji, it's extremely thoughtful on the part of the university to reflect on compassion and its relevance for our time. Mahatma Gandhi has been described very thoughtfully by late Mr. K.R. Narayanan, President of India, as a compassionate rebel. He rebelled, he broke laws, but based on compassion. So he was a splendid example of compassionate rebel. And that compassionate rebellion was reflected in everything that he did, in his method of struggle, in his actions, in his writings, and the worldview that he nurtured, harbored, and which is now being followed. Today is his martyrdom day, Gandhiji's martyrdom day. After Martin Luther King was assassinated, a leading newspaper of USA published a cartoon. That cartoon, just now I traced in my Facebook. I posted it a few years back. The cartoon stated, picture was there. Gandhi is there in the heavens. Martin Luther King enters the heavens after his martyrdom. Then Gandhi told Martin Luther King in the heavens, the odd thing, Dr. King, the odd thing about assassin, Dr. King, that he thinks he has killed you. The odd thing about assassin, Dr. King, that he thinks the assassin has killed you. Look at the significance of that cartoon. None can kill Gandhi, none can kill Martin Luther King. The compassion that we are discussing today, and which is very, very thoughtfully chosen, I really, really felt very moved when the theme is centered around compassion. Gandhiji's method of struggle based on Satyagraha was actually woven around compassion. See, look at the compassion means a confluential approach, an inclusive approach. It's not an exclusive approach. There is no element of exclusion in compassion. And if you look at the Satyagraha, nonviolence, nonviolence is inclusive, always inclusive. It's based on compassion and therefore it is inclusive. See, when he started Satyagraha, he put a question to himself and to others. Who were the Satyagrahis before us, either in mythology or in history? Gandhi did a lot of research, and the research threw light on 4 Satyagrahis in mythology and history. He said the first Satyagrahi was in Hindu mythology, Bhakt Prahalad. Prahalad was a child persecuted his father for his persistence to remain tuned to Lord Hari, because his father wanted him to pray to Lord Shiva. But he remained tuned to Lord Hari. His father wanted to kill him, poison him, maim him, and whatnot. He wanted to brutalize and take his life away. But Prahalad never prayed his Hari to kill his father. So that is compassion. Fight against injustice and evil. Struggle for justice without harboring ill will against the enemy. That is compassion, which he learned from Hindu mythology, Prahalad. The second example of Satyagrahi, which is again based on extraordinary compassion, was from Jesus Christ. And this example is well known. The third example of compassion which Gandhiji took was from Islam, Imam Hussain. Today, people talk about jihadis, but Imam Hussein's legacy in Islam is rooted in nonviolence, compassion, and self-suffering. I fail to understand that why this legacy of Islam is not being talked about. Legacy of Imam Hussain is not being talked about. And fourth Satyagrahi, again a remarkable example of compassion, was a lady, a woman. This gender dimension to compassion, Mirabai. Mirabai was tuned to Lord Girdhari, Lord Krishna. She was persecuted, she was poisoned by her own husband and family. But she never prayed Lord Krishna to kill her family or to kill her husband. So this is compassion from Hinduism, Islam, and Christianity. And this is compassion which includes women. So this confluential approach, which is a defining feature of compassion, is missing in today's life, which is compartmentalized, segmented, and which looks at religions from the perspective of the other, not the embracing of the other. Embracing the other is compassion. If you exclude other, that is contrary to compassion. So this is the beauty of Gandhiji's method of struggle. And apart from that, actually, I remember in the House of Commons, when the present Queen was honored for completing 50 years of her reign, Speaker of House of Commons, John Bercow, he delivered a 5-minute speech, which was so powerful, and in that 5-minute speech, he quoted Gandhi twice. He said, and that's element of compassion he threw light on. He said, Gandhi said, in presence of the Queen of England, he said, Gandhi said, in a gentle way, you can shake the world. And then he told the Queen, Your Majesty, in a gentle way, you have shaken Britain. Just imagine, so many years they ruled India, and now the Queen of England is being shown Gandhi as a benchmark of compassion, and that too in the House of Commons. So this is the triumph of Gandhi's compassion across the world. And third point is, Professor Das referred to education, Nai Talim. There is a brilliant book which Gandhi wrote in 1922. It's called Bal Pothi, School Children, for school children. It was a primer. In that primer, again, there is an element of compassion. There is a small chapter called Household Work. I mean, 1922, he wanted gender equality at home. Other aspects were there in that book. He said in the house, there is a debate, imaginary debate, among brother, sister, and mother. Sister wanted to go out and play and study. Brother said, no, my dear sister, this is not your job. Look at mother, what is she doing? Cooking food, washing utensils, looking after home. Follow mother. And boy said he would follow father, who is going out earning for the family. Sister was adamant. She said, whatever you are doing, I will do, she told her brother. The fight was on. The sister persisted to follow what she wanted to do, to study, play, go out, and so on and so forth. The debate and the fight was on. The mother intervened. He said, my son, you are wrong. House belongs to men and women, boy and girl. Household work is a joint responsibility of men and women. Household work actually builds up muscles, fine-tunes your brain. It actually helps you to grow as a healthy human being. And do not ask your sister only to household work. You also do the household work. That book was written in 1922. And today, United Nations Human Development Report, the economics which Prime Minister Abe developed, he said, in Japan, there is through electronic media, through social media, even today in India, very, very hearteningly in India, there is a nice advertisement which is through, projected through FM Gold in Delhi. The man asked, अरे आपका बेटी कहाँ है? बेटी बाहर गए, बेटा कहाँ है? बेटा किचन में है. This is the advertisement in India in 21st century. बेटा किचन में है, बेटी बाहर में है. आप क्या करके रखे हैं घर पे? सिर्फ कुछ नहीं जी, बेटी और बेटा को बराबर का हक दे रहा हूँ. You know, look, 1922, almost 100 years back, Gandhiji wrote. And that is compassion at every level. It's not compassion for suffering people. It's not just compassion for a deprived people. You know, this compassion has to be seen in the larger aspect of gender justice. A compassion has to be seen in every dimensions of life. And the last point we'd like to say is that, look at the manner in which India is now caught in turmoil of beef eating. Muslims are killed in the name of beef. Somebody is being segregated, thrown out of the assembly because just because he doesn't say Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Why does one has to say Bharat Mata Ki Jai? Why can't somebody quietly work? Is not work a sign of patriotism? Suppose somebody wants to say Jai Hind, doesn't want to say Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Is not uttering Jai Hind a sign of patriotism? Is not a sign of compassion? Compassion for the nation and so on and so forth. So Gandhiji actually defined India in terms of compassion. He said, I do not want India to be wholly Hindu, wholly Islamic, wholly Christian. I want India to be wholly tolerant with all its religion coexisting side by side and flourishing. This is an inclusive and confluential approach, which is nothing but the manifestation of compassion. And today, across the world, this element of compassion is missing. In fact, in the context of this age cut by terrorism, cut by global warming, and so on and so forth. In fact, one famous psychologist, James Coleman, he wrote an abnormal psychology book. There he said that 17th century was described as the century of enlightenment, 18th is the century of reason, 19th is the century of progress, 20th century of anxiety, and 21st century is described as the century of fear because of global warming, climate change, terrorism, and many other complex problems threatening the whole planet. In this context, in fact, there's a book brought out by World Future Council. It's called Surviving the Century, Facing the Climate Chaos. In the entire book, there's no reference to Gandhi. But in the very first page, they say we can save the planet by following 4 normative principles: nonviolence, sustainability, respect, and justice. Now, nonviolence, sustainability, respect, and justice, these are the core elements of compassion. So therefore, at every level, be it at the level of sustainability, be it the level of education, at the context of nation, to address the so-called fringe elements who just, without seeing a film, they create mayhem. And right on the day before the Republic Day, when we celebrate the might of the Republic and the compassionate aspects of the Republic. So when you are confronted with such intractable challenges, I think this worldview of Gandhi is of extreme significance, not just for India, but for the whole of the humanity. I'm sure this seminar, which has been very thoughtfully designed and very thoughtfully prepared, will actually be a good step to go ahead to explore the ideal and concept of compassion, which Gandhi said is a manifestation of higher consciousness. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for those. We appreciate the insightful words. I now request the Vice Chancellor to felicitate the guests on the dais as a token of appreciation and gratitude for their valuable time and presence. Please, Father. Now may I request the Registrar of Xavier University Bhubaneswar, Father E. A. Augustine, to give away the vote of thanks. Please, Father.
It's my pleasure and privilege, and I am duty bound to express our sincere gratitude to all the dignitaries, especially sitting on the stage. I'd like to begin by thanking His Excellency Major General Retired Chris S.A. for his keen interest in the Gandhian thought and expressed his willingness from the day one when he was contacted by the Vice Chancellor's office. He readily agreed to come over and deliver his speech and share his thoughts in the context of Africa and India on the noble thoughts of Gandhi. Sir, on behalf of the entire Xavier University family, the Vice Chancellor and all of us present here, we thank you very sincerely for your kind presence and for the wonderful thought that you gave us. Also thank Dr. Ashok Das, great educationist, for coming over and wonderfully sharing his excellent ideas and thoughts and inspiring us and giving us few more tips on how to be compassionate in our education. Dr. Das, we thank you so much for your presence and wonderful input. Our heartfelt thanks goes to Mr. S.N. Sahu, who has come all the way from Delhi. Okay. And you know how brilliantly he spoke, for sharing his wonderful thoughts and insights and quoting his son Bose, Mr. K.R. Narayanan, with whom he has very closely worked for many years. Thank you, Mr. Sahu, for your presence and wonderful insight. Well, my dear friends, this program would not have been possible but for the insightful thought and initiative taken by our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Professor Father Paul Fernandez. Father, we are indeed grateful to you. On behalf of the School of Humanities and Compassion Studies, we thank you for your initiative and for organizing this wonderful conference this morning on the martyrdom of Gandhiji. Also like to thank all the eminent speakers and participants who have come from all over the country. I'm sure your presence and your insights and thoughts today and today and tomorrow will immensely add value to this conference. I would also like to thank the press and the media, including the School of Communications, for their contribution and support in this conference. I cannot but thank all the deans, especially the deans of schools of human resource management, rural management, the urban management and governance and sustainability, and for all the students from the schools who are present here, and we look forward to your continuous cooperation and support today, after this session and tomorrow as well. I thank all my administrative team members who put in a lot of hard work and effort in making this program a success. Thank you one and all. God bless you. Wish you all the best for the next 2 days.
I thank everyone for being present in the inaugural session. The next sessions will be having the student discussions. Students of Human Resource Management and Sustainability Management will be gathering at Conference Hall 1, and students of Rural Management and Urban Management will be gathering at Conference Hall 2. This will happen at 12:30 sharp. 12:30. Ma'am. Please note that you have to reassemble here at 3:30 for the governor's speech.